Okay, looks like everything's done for Child's Week. Okay, so what's left? I got that done, that done. I only got to do... I hate PvP. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I really, really hate PvP. In fact, I could probably sit here for the next bunch of minutes and just say over and over again, I hate PvP, and that would make me actually very happy. I'd lose you guys in the first 20 seconds, but I find it highly therapeutic. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, if you don't like PvP, then just don't play PvP. The problem is that WoW and other MMO games like that cram it down your throat and make you play PvP if you want to get some of the achievements and some of the stuff that's actually in-game. Let me explain. I'm going to be talking specifically about World of Warcraft, but every MMO has this. Most adventuring is PvE, or player versus environment. PvP is player versus player against another actual human being. If you want to get very broad in your definition, Halo Online is a PvP experience. A lot of gamers prefer this, as human opponents are supposedly more unpredictable, and it's probably about as close to sports as any of these guys are really going to get. Okay, I admit, I've used that joke before, but it does ring true. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that plays MMOs are a bunch of big, overweight, not fit guys. What I'm saying is that they're just not a bunch of jocks. Okay, I'm really going way far out for this one. Let me bring it back in. It doesn't take a genius to see that sports are important for some reason to our society. Athletes are put on a pedestal and revered. And hey, if I could make millions of dollars playing a game, I'd do it. Hey, real quick, you know there's crossover, right? You know, over in South Korea, they have these StarCraft events which are drawing more people than their actual main sports. Players get these massive sponsorships and these draw live audiences and stuff, and it's starting to take off in the US too, you know. It's just a matter of time. Good point. Off the subject, but a good point. It's what I do. So, back to my point. PvP is the closest that gaming of any kind will ever get to any sports of any kind. If you want to get into the history of it, PvP is probably as old as electronic gaming. Why do you think the Atari 2600 had 2 controllers in games like Combat? The concept is a lot more fun later on, because I can remember spending many weekends downtown Chicago playing BattleTech at a real-life facility down there. I always preferred Red Planet, but I'm also a sucker for racing games. That and the instructional video, priceless.
Sir, we're picking up a pirate transmission.
Good evening, Mars! And hello to all fellow enslaved workers. I'm Freeman Jack, and until the CMC police track down this transmitter, we're gonna televise tonight's race!
Yeah, that's Weird Al in the video. And that's Judge Reinhold. Cheech is in this video!
Hey, chica, who taught you how to drive?
Madre.
Oh, I think I'm in love.
I cannot tell you how much fun it was to play a roadblock in this game, because you go up against a bunch of specs, and if you do it right, you can throw the thrusters the right way, and you can throw your VTV on the side, and you can take all of them out in one shot. It was amazing! Okay, I'm losing myself in the nostalgia here. I'll save this one for another time, but for right now, let's get back to MMOs and PvP. My point is that as long as 2 people exist on this planet, one will say, I'm better than you, and the other will say, prove it. That and people claim that PvP is more of a challenge since you can't predict people, and to that, I say watch this. Right now you're riding on my shoulder playing tactical laser tag, and I'm playing in an arena that I know pretty well. I know the patterns that people do week after week, and making my plays based on those patterns. This is the problem I have when people talk about humans being harder. Once you know the terrain, you can predict how people will use it and get a high probability of success. But there's a huge difference between this and PvP in the World of Warcraft, and that's gear. This is the same problem I have with paintball, in that players believe they can compensate for lack of skill by buying better gear. Unfortunately in WoW, this actually is the case. I speak tactics. I actually read Sun Tzu's Art of War and I studied it. PvP in WoW has nothing to do with tactics. In fact, most WoW players probably think that tactics are a type of breath mint. Most skirmishes in WoW consist of players running around like headless chickens, relying on their numbers to do the work for them. Which brings up the big problem on the top end. I spent a weekend trying to like PvP, playing Battleground after Battleground to try to earn honor points so I could buy the high-end gear. But I noticed that I wasn't alone. Everybody was cookie cutter to the point that I was running into other players with my exact same gear set. meaning that the gear was plateaued to the top end and it came down to just the numbers that each class brought to the table. The player tactics were the same: run around, get in your dings, but once the gear was topped off, it was just a matter of putting more bodies on the field than the other team, and that's just not tactics. Alright, I keep on bringing up tactics. You see, I come from a sporting background where tactics and skill actually work. For what it's worth, I can show you guys a backlog of helmet camera videos, just like this one over here, in which all you need is some skill and a pair of titanium balls, and you can actually do well for your team, and you can win games like that.
Barrel tag, please walk away quietly so I don't have to shoot you. Alright. Barrel tag, please walk away quietly so I don't have to shoot you.
And I just don't see that in PvP on WoW. What I see are a bunch of prima donnas who are out there basically to feed their own ego, and they have no concept of the team game at all. In fact, you wouldn't see that in the real well, at least even in the real world, he understands that he needs the rest of his team to win.
One of the seasonal achievements that I pointed out earlier just cannot be done unless you play PvP, and you have to do specific things in PvP that a lot of the high-level PvP players just won't let you do because you're just not elite enough. And the most interesting is that now, PvP is the fastest way to get gear scored up. Just for an example, I was thrown out of a group on more than one occasion because they deemed my gear score was too low for their liking. See, this is a number that exists just to show the level of your gear, and there's actually add-ons you can get to display this. So, my choice is to just grind for days on quests to get mediocre gear, or grind for a night in Battlegrounds and earn honor to buy PvP high-end gear. And you can guess what most people are doing now. But here's the ironic thing. Once you grind out your PvP gear, you can just keep on earning honor. You go to this other guy in world, exchange your honor for these other points at a 100-point loss, walk around to a different vendor, and you buy high-end PvE gear. So, in just doing Tol Barand and Alterac Valley for maximum honor points for minimal time, you can gear your tune-up and high-level PvE gear in a few nights rather than in a few weeks.
Which brings me back to the point I was talking about before. PvP is in fact crammed down your throat. It is a means to an end. If you want to get some decent gear in a relatively decent time frame, PvP is pretty much the only way to do it. And I know there's a lot of guys who love PvP, and to you guys, all power to you. Just leave me out of it. It does remind me though of way back in the day when I used to have an Xbox, when Xbox Live was a big thing way back when. I wanted to unsubscribe from my Xbox Live account. It just wasn't fun for me anymore. And they made me call Microsoft and get a high-pitched pressure sale from a guy on the phone rather than just do it electronically. And the guy was saying, "Oh, but Halo 2 is coming out. You can play Halo 2 with all your friends. It'll be awesome." And I said, "Look, if I want to play a first-person shooter game, I'm going to grab my goggles, I'm going to go play paintball, and I'm going to have a much better time." There's a few moments of silence, followed by some key tapping, and he said, "Okay, dude, you're unsubscribed." Yeah, virtual reality is kind of fun. Actual reality, much cooler. Did I even do it? Oh. Oh. You know, ever since Windows had their last update, this thing's been crashing. And I don't know why. Well, reset.